Before Copernicus, we believed that we were the center of the universe, right? The Earth was the center of the universe, and the moon revolved around us, and the sun revolved around us, and everything. And then Copernicus came along and said, no, that's not how it is. So likewise, we have put money and profit at the center of our universe when it comes to business. And people and the planet and communities and everything revolves around that. We have to change that. We have to put life at the center. Not just humans, but all life, because life is interconnected and we are systematically destroying life on this planet. We're living through the sixth mass extinction in the history of the planet. Species are disappearing at 100 to 1,000 times a rate in where you work. We are the stewards of all life on this planet. Every business that we run has to be in service of life collectively. Business is a way for us to take care of each other. It's not a way for me to exploit you to make money for myself. It's a way for all of us together to meet each other's needs and do that at scale in a way that is efficient and productive and generates a surplus as well.
Welcome to E3, Engage and Empower with Empathy, a podcast brought to you by the Empathy Collective, a consulting firm that helps business leaders inspire change, one conversation at a time. I'm Rebecca Dreama, your host and founder of the Empathy Collective, and we are building a community of like-minded leaders and experts who all share the same passion, taking care of people at work. Whether you are a plant manager trying to humanize the factory floor, a small business owner wanting to build a strong culture that lasts, or a corporate executive striving to prevent burnout in your team, you belong in this community. True leadership isn't just about strategy, metrics, or efficiency. It's about presence, awareness, and the courage to choose what's right over what's easy. Raj Sisodia, described as an intellectual shaman, has devoted his life to bringing caring, humanity, and healing to business and capitalism. Since the 2007 publication of his groundbreaking book, Firms of Endearment, Raj has championed the idea that organizations can thrive not in spite of, but because of their focus on people, purpose, and passion. A founding member and chairman emeritus of the Conscious Capitalism movement, Raj is also FEMSA Distinguished University Professor of Conscious Enterprise and chairman of the Conscious Enterprise Center at Tecnológico de Monterrey in Mexico. He is co-author of the New York Times bestseller Conscious Capitalism and the Wall Street Journal bestseller Everybody Matters, and has served on the boards of Mastech and The Container Store. In this episode, we explore Raj's personal journey of healing and awakening, how letting go of judgment and bitterness, living in gratitude and embracing love, innocence, simplicity, and truth can transform not only a leader, but an entire organization. He shares insights from his new book, Healing Leaders, and the 7 steps to recovery of self that lead to personal transformation and pave a path for positive organizational change. This is E3, Engage and Empower with Empathy. Welcome to the show, Raj. It is so nice to have you here. I've been super excited about this interview. I've read several of your books. I know you recently released a new edition together with Bob Chapman of Everybody Matters. That book has been a huge part of my leadership toolkit for a long time. And then I read The Healing Organization first before I read Awaken, and actually thought, oh, I wish I had read it the other way around, because I feel like your book, Awaken, explains why you moved into the field of conscious capitalism and wrote The Healing Organization. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the Awaken piece first in your journey, because I think that feeds nicely into how you ended up on the path you are on today. So anyway, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, I'm happy to be here, Rebecca, and looking forward to our conversation.
So let's talk about your journey, because it is fascinating. I was incredibly touched by the amount of information you shared on your personal journey in your book, Awaken. And that's what compelled me to reach out to you and set up some time to have this conversation, because what I found in organizations is that many leaders, and you even say it yourself, we're all kind of sleepwalking. We're going through life just kind of in this haze, and we haven't really gone through that deep self-reflection like you did, tuning into any internal traumas or things we experienced in childhood and understanding it, being okay with it, becoming friends with it, and then using that as a strength in the way we lead. And I think many people don't take the time to do that. And so it becomes a barrier. I find it ironic that we look at organizational health and we measure organizational health, and it all comes down to financial metrics. But in the end, I
Mhm.
feel like the health of our organizations today really should be measured on mental health and the mental health of our leaders and our teams, because we're definitely suffering in that sense with psychic illnesses and in the workplace. And I think that all ties back to not doing that self-reflection, not really doing that inner healing that you did. So can you talk about what that journey looked like for you? Because it took you a while to get to that point where you were kind of
Yeah.
reflecting, thinking, "Oh, yeah, this is my purpose. This is what I should be doing." How did you get to where you are today?
Well, you're right that the journey has been a long one and continues. The subtitle to that book, as you know, is "The Path to Purpose: Inner Peace and Healing." And I would say for me, those things did happen in that sequence. I was fortunate to find my purpose, although it was late by most standards. I was almost 50 years old. I wasn't actively searching for a purpose. I think in those days, in the late 90s, early 2000s, it wasn't as common as it is today, when people talk about purpose all the time, individually and for organizations. But I knew that what I was experiencing in my profession was not inspiring to me. I did not feel proud to being a marketing professor. I didn't believe in a lot of what I was teaching. It certainly violated some of my values and my innate idealism uh, for the world to be a certain way. I just felt I was dropped into a very cynical profession, marketing. And the way that it's practiced, it can be done with higher consciousness, but it wasn't. So I was on a path of being um, disillusioned, uninspired, and certainly not emotionally connected to my work. I look back and I say my business education of 6 years, 2 years MBA and 4 years PhD was all about the head and the wallet. So everything was the numbers and the theories and the frameworks, and everything has to go to the bottom line. But we completely bypass the human in between, the heart and the spirit. And those were missing for me for even the first 20 years of my career. And I was asking the question, there must be a better way to think about this profit maximization, shareholder value being the only purpose of business. And then for marketing, of course, it's all about maximizing market share and kind of getting as many customers to buy as much as possible, whether it's good for them or not, whether they need it or not. And you do it by hook or by crook. You do it through advertising and coupons and gimmicks and essentially lying to customers as well and creating a lot of negative consequences for their emotional well-being, psychological well-being, and for their physical well-being as well, for their bodies, get them addicted to junk. And so I was in that place of angst, but also one voice in me said, there must be a better way, and let's look for a better way. And so I was following my heartbreak, as Andrew Harvey put it, follow your heartbreak. What does that mean? There are things that other people see and doesn't bother them, but I see them and it bothers me. Right? Most
Mm,
of my colleagues in the PhD program had no problem with any of these things, right? They were bought into it all. And my professors did not have a problem with it, but I did. So I could see the way we were impacting young women, for example, using their bodies to sell products. What does that do to the psyche of young women? Eating disorders and body dysmorphia and depression. These are all the consequences, right? And there are many others. And so I was following my heartbreak. And then from that, I was asking, is there a better way to do this? Are there companies that are allowed by customers? Originally, that was the question, and they don't have to spend all this money on marketing. Because that was also offensive to me that in the US, we were spending $1 trillion on marketing, on ads, coupons, and junk mail. This was in 2004. When the GDP of India, where I'm sitting right now, over a billion people, the GDP of India was $700 billion that year. In America, we were spending much more than that on ads, coupons, and junk mail for 300 million people. I said, what are we getting from that? A lot that money could do a lot of good in the world, right? Including in the US. But we're spending it all on these things. And is it making life better? Is it improving society? Is it making people happier and healthier? And no, the answer is no to all of those. So, so asking the question, is there a better way, for me meant Are they companies that don't spend so much money and yet customers love them and they do the right thing? And that then ultimately led me to discover the principles of conscious capitalism, companies that are loved not only by customers, but employees and communities and suppliers and so forth. What makes that happen? A higher, a noble purpose, a stakeholder mindset, conscious leadership, and caring culture. And in the process of discovering those pillars or principles, I was literally moved to tears as I was writing some of the stories of these companies. And that was a pretty significant moment for me because I had not cried for a long time before that. Even when tragedies happened in my life, people dying, I had shut down. But suddenly this opened my heart. And I knew that my body was trying to tell me something, that this way of being in business really resonates with me. Finally, that I'm seeing what I was searching for, that I'm emotionally connected to my work now, and that business can be run on love and caring and purpose. And of course, later on, we found when we did the financial analysis that these companies are even more successful financially. So this became a pretty compelling thing. So my purpose, in a way, found me in that instant. It's Joseph Campbell said, "You follow your bliss. Follow your heartbreak until you find your bliss." And this was my bliss. I said, "Wow, business can be beautiful. Business can be noble. Business can be heroic." And so that was me discovering my purpose around 2005 when I was writing that book. And that was a big change in my life because before that I didn't have a purpose and now I did. And I was on fire ever since, really, trying to spread these ideas and, launch the movement with John Mackey and write the book and do all the other things. So my purpose was very front and center for me. I thought that was it. That was the holy grail, right? In life, you have a purpose and you get to live it. And then, in one of my MBA classes on conscious capitalism, the question came up about burnout. And my belief was that if you are working in a way that aligns with your purpose, that you don't burn out because your work gives you energy, right? It energizes you. And my students said, okay, we want to actually examine that, whether that's true or not. So they did a research paper on that question. And what they found was that purpose-driven people actually burn out at a higher rate than people who are just in a regular job, don't care so much about it. Because they get over-invested in it and then they lose sight of some of the other elements. They ignore their physical health, their mental well-being, their social relationships and all of that. They just become driven by spiritual energy, which is purpose. And I was very much in that. I was traveling 60-70% of the time, giving 80 to 100 talks a year all over the world. I remember once flying from Korea to Brazil and then to Europe and then somewhere. It was like going, it was nuts. And so I was burning myself out and I didn't have inner peace. And I also was struggling at home, in my own personal life, relationship, or marriage, and so forth. And so I was using it almost as a way to escape. I was attracted to it for a positive reason. Certainly, it was an important thing I felt that I was doing, I had to do. But also, there was the other reason that I just didn't want to be home that much. And so I think searching for that inner peace, that happiness. So I was purposeful, but was I happy? No, I can't say that I was. Did I have inner peace? Not really. But I just thought that was my fruit in this life. That I was not meant to be happy. I was just meant to do this work. And all of that started to change around the time I turned 60, when I had this wake up call. I mean, turning 60, first of all, was a big deal psychologically. It's just like entering the final act of your life and reflecting on what life has meant. But as I write in the book, 4 women gave me a wake up call beyond that and asked me a very simple but profound question. Because I was writing the healing organization that year in 2018. And even though I was turning 60, I wasn't doing anything differently. I had done all my research, collected the cases, and I was going to spend that entire summer writing. And they all asked me the same question, some version of, you're writing a book about healing. What about your own healing? And my initial answer was kind of flippant. I said, well, I don't have time for that. I've got a book deadline. This book is due October 5th. And they said, no, you must make time for that. And it's important. So I had the good sense to listen to them and delay that book by 5 months and actually experience a number of healing pains that summer and into the fall of 2018, actually starting in March of that year, when I had a plant journey experience. For the first time, that really opened my heart and got me to see my life in a different way and made me understand my purpose in an even deeper way. But then beyond that, I started to have other experiences, going to the Himalayas for my 60th birthday, deep in the seat of some of the most profound Buddhist wisdom in the world, that border with India and Tibet, a lot of monasteries, monks, and so forth. I went to a silent retreat in upstate New York in 4 days of silence in the company of about 35 people, including Peter Senge and David Cooper and many of my heroes. And that was a profound experience. I had 42 pages of notes at the end of those 4 days, and I outlined the new book that came out of that. I also went to the Amazon rainforest with Lynn Twist on the Pachamama Alliance, and I spent 10 days in the rainforest with two different indigenous peoples, the Achuar and the Zapara, and had profound healing experiences with the shamans. Also, connection to nature, recognizing that we are part of nature, although we tend to separate ourselves, but we are as much a part of nature as a tree or a bee. And I'm also getting these profound visions through an ayahuasca ceremony. And then I also worked with a coach for the first time, and she helped me kind of make sense of my life. So I was starting to then move towards this inner peace and understanding myself, understanding my journey and some of the challenging things that had happened, and starting to recognize that there is what Gabor Mate calls a wisdom of trauma. That if you are able to not only acknowledge your trauma, but work to heal it, then there is a gift on the other side of trauma, which is post-traumatic growth, the possibility of becoming a wounded healer, that you can help other people having gone through these challenges yourself, like the ability to help other people. And so that was my experience, really, that having acknowledged that I had trauma, yes. Before that, I would not use the word trauma to describe my life, but when I understood about it, read about it, I said, yeah, these are traumatic things, and minimizing them doesn't help anybody. We all have to acknowledge that every human carries post-traumatic stress injury.
Yeah.
Some fraction of us have post PTSD, but then all of us have to. And if we ignore it, then we're going to go through life kind of in a reactive state, not knowing why we act the way we do and say the things that we do, and we end up hurting ourselves and hurting others.
Well, and I think that's the case with a lot of people right now. We're reacting to things. We're not taking time for that deep reflection. And for those people out there who don't have the luxury of traveling to Tibet or going to the Himalayas and having these deeply spiritual experiences, what would you recommend? Because I know you talk a lot about healing starting. I like the list: love, innocence,
Hmm.
simplicity, and truth. What does that look like? So how can someone use that list as a way to start connecting with their inner truths, their inner traumas? I mean, you started off in a small village in India. Well, not so small. I think it was like 3,000 people, Kesor, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
watching your father, and his successes, following him around, watching your mom kind of silently stand by his side and basically follow his path. You saw deaths. I mean, there was so much. And in the meantime, you were trying to find your purpose. Purpose found you. You experienced a lot of interesting life events and traumas. And so it didn't take you until later on in life to really dig into that a little bit. And how did it make you who you are today?
Well, I think it's not a journey you undertake alone. I think you do need guidance and help. I think we are fortunate to live at a time when we have access to all the great wisdom from all the traditions throughout human history at our fingertips. But we have to choose to expose ourselves to that wisdom. So I think it includes reading significant books. For me, Man's Search for Meaning, for example, was a very important book by Viktor Frankl. And then other teachers like Ram Dass or Atishanti or um, uh, some of the Indian spiritual teachers that I've taken courses, the art of living. These are all pretty accessible things. They're available all over the world. What I say is that we are in charge of our own mutation. We have to choose to evolve. We have to choose to wake up. We're not the caterpillar that automatically becomes a butterfly because nature turns on the imaginal cells. We have to turn on our imagination, locate and then turn them on, right? So we have to have that intention and desire to take ownership of our lives and have that intention that we are going to evolve ourselves and go on that journey. And that means exposing yourself to these various wisdom traditions, taking courses. Many of them are available online. Now with AI, of course, you've got access to all of that in a very understandable, digestible form. So all of these things are available to people. And books like my book Awaken, but also the new book Seven Steps to Recovery of Self. These are all guidelines. We humans are the only species that are able to learn from others. You don't have to experience everything yourself. You don't have to go through my trauma to get the benefit of what I learned through that healing experience. You can learn it directly from the book, and a lot of that is quite impactful. And once we identify what those issues are, traumas are, there's many modalities available now for people to heal from these traumas. I think we're living in a golden age in the way of trauma healing. There's many, many things that are available from EMDR to Gabor Mate's work on trauma-informed therapy, to even a lot of the psychedelic work that is going on. People are using that to assist in the uncovering and healing of traumas and so forth. So there's a lot out there. The resources are out there. Once you ask the right questions and you have the right open frame of mind to say, yes, I do need to heal and I need help, and how I can start to get that help.
I mean, for you, it was those women who kind of woke you up to that realization, like, oh, you're writing a book about healing organizations, and what about yourself and your own healing?
Yeah.
That was your wake up moment. For other folks, I mean, obviously going out and researching all these authors and materials you shared, that's wonderful. Would you recommend connecting with other people to help you with that awakening? I mean, was that a huge part of your support network, Raj?
Yes, it was, because all of these things I did in groups, right? We went to the Himalayas with a Shakti spiritual tour so I wrote a book called Shakti Leadership with Nilima Bhatt. And she kind of became a teacher for me as well. She's very deeply grounded in spiritual wisdom. And so she organizes these spiritual journeys. In fact, she just came back from Peru, I think, today, from Machu Picchu. And so we were in a group of about 12 of us, right? So there's a lot of deep sharing that happens within that. Same thing in the Amazon rainforest. I was one of 17 in that 10-day experience. And so there's a lot of interaction and understanding. And once you go through the healing processes with the shamans, what do we learn from that? What do we take away from that, etc.? So I think healing does not happen alone. And it does not happen in silence. So we have to be, as we say, you have to reveal it and feel it in order to heal it. And you reveal it not only to yourself, but you have to reveal it in a more broad way. I mean, I've done it through my book and through my talks. Everybody doesn't have to write a book, but they certainly have to be more open about it. Because that's the only way you start to heal these things, by bringing them into the light and doing so in community. And so, there are lots of
Yes.
great programs. You could go to the SLN Institute in California. You could go to the Omega Institute in upstate New York. You can go to Blue Spirit in Costa Rica. And there are many, many others that have a wide range of offerings that can really, really help open people up and get them on this path.
So let's talk a little bit about this book that you're releasing in January. And in fact, this episode will come out after the book is released. So good timing. What kind of toolkit are you sharing in that book for leaders who are trying to kind of become better acquainted with their inner selves, their inner parts, to be a healthier leader, not burning out, taking care of their team? Burnout is so prevalent in workplaces today. I'd love to know what you're presenting in that book as a toolkit to help people.
Yeah. So, this, just like the list which you mentioned, this is also something that came from the source. It's not something that I dreamt up or created just by brainstorming. So I was at that silent retreat, and in those 4 days of silence, walking around with a journal, just being in nature by myself, I was receiving so much wisdom, so many downloads, including these 7 steps that came to me. That what do we human beings need to go through in our lives is these 7 touchstones or milestones. We all have to, first of all, starting with knowing yourself, right? You have to know yourself, and that's fundamental. And each of these, there's been a lot written about, and these are phrases that would sound familiar to people, but knowing yourself is the starting point. We are one of 8 billion humans on the planet right now, but there have been 109 billion humans who have already lived and died before us. And every one of us is unique. Two are alike. Nature does not do duplicates, so everything that nature creates is unique in that way. And certainly human beings are dramatically different from one another. So you have to understand yourself. If you're going to lead an authentic life and not a generic life, then you have to understand who is this, right? Understand yourself, not only your identities, most of which are given to you. You're a Catholic and you're Mexican and you're your gender and who are your parents and all of that. I mean, you don't control any of that, right? That's just given from the outside to you. Those become your identities, but they can become traps if you hold them too tightly. That I'm a Catholic and I'm this and that, or whatever it might be, nationalism, all of that. But that's not the real you. Who are you? That being that came here already with some qualities. You have a unique nature, right? You have some values that really matter to you, but not to somebody else. Things that just define you, right? And then over time, you start to uncover more and more. So the starting point is to know yourself. The second one is to love yourself. It is not by any means automatic that if you know yourself, you're going to love yourself. Bruce Lipton estimates that 80 to 90% of people on this planet do not love themselves. They have a very, very negative relationship with themselves. And what that does, if you don't love yourself, is you actually you don't have the ability to receive the love of another. Because if you don't love yourself, somebody else says that they love you, what you're basically thinking is, well, they don't know me. That's why they think they love me. Right? I don't give my own love. So why would they love? So then you end up sabotaging your own relation. You get quite isolated. And when you don't love yourself, you don't take care of yourself. So most of us are quite abusive towards our own being, our bodies, our minds, right? We feed our bodies all kinds of things that we know are not good for it. We feed our minds with all kinds of things. Because if you don't love somebody, you're not going to take care of them. You don't love yourself, you're not going to take care of yourself. So we have to change that fundamentally. We have to recognize, in my case, because I didn't know my father until I was 7 years old, and he came into my life, and he was the opposite of me in many ways. I'm much more like my mother. And he saw everything about me as a weakness. All my qualities that seemed to be innate to me. I was quite trusting by nature. I was very idealistic. I was very peace loving. I was, quite good in school. And he saw all of them as, he said, you can't trust anybody, and you should not be idealistic. You should be pragmatic, and you should be rough and tough, and you have to harmony seeking, and it's okay to be good in school, but you need to be street smart. So all of these things. So I got the message that everything about me was a weakness, or was a flaw. It took me decades really to recognize that these are actually my strengths. This is what defines me, and this is what I'm meant to bring into the world. This is part of my offering. The set of qualities and whatever I do with it. So getting to that place of self-compassion and then ultimately self-acceptance and self-love, I think it's very important for us to do anything meaningful in this life, loving yourself. So that's step number 2, and then being yourself. Once you know who you are and you're good with that, you love yourself, then your job is to be the full version of that in the world, not act and try to be somebody other than what you are, or to have all of these different personalities that you show the world. That you're one way with your boss, and one way with your subordinates, and one way with your parents, and one way with your children, and with your siblings, and with your friends. All these different people. Can you just be the same person at all times? Can you cultivate that sense of serene presence within your own being? And then the next step is to choose yourself. That was an interesting one for me because it came to me actually at a meal time at that silent retreat. When it was time to eat, because we were in total silence, we could not gesture or point or do any of that. So you took your tray and they just put food in your tray, whatever they happen to prepare. And it occurred to me that this was a good metaphor for life, because life is not a buffet that you can go and pick whatever. And there's no menu that you can order from to say, I'll have this kind of mother and this kind of father, and I'll be born into this religion in this country at this point in time, in this socioeconomic status, whatever, right? You don't get to choose any of it. It's all given to you. It's like a tray full of stuff. And some of it appears unappetizing, and some of it actually tastes bitter. But that is your curriculum for this life. This is what you need to go through. All of it is going to serve some purpose. And so that was the hardest things that happened to your life, the most challenging people. You can view them as a gift. You can say, I cannot change the past, but if I could, I go back and actually, I choose it again. I choose to have that father. I choose to be born into that, etc. Because then you can see the gifts that are inherent in that. But if you don't, you remain a victim. You become a victim of your own life. Like, why me? It's me. Why did I have this kind of father? And why was I born into that culture, etc. As Ramdas said, there's no friend or foe alike. Everybody is there as a teacher. Every experience and every person is there to teach you something. So choosing yourself, which is choosing your past. You can't change your past, you might as well choose it actively in your mind. And then choosing your present, living with gratitude, and choosing your future, which is about your purpose. And that's a whole part of the book where we help people figure out their purpose in this life. And then express yourself, which is also about the hero's journey that we all have to go on in order to really fulfill our purpose in this world. It's not easy. It's going to challenge us. We have to, as Joseph Campbell said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. Overcome your deepest fears. You have to grow into a larger being, a heroic being that you don't realize is inside you. So that's part of the journey, the hero's journey that we have. And then complete yourself, which is the integration of the masculine and feminine, which we wrote about in Shakti Leadership. That's what that book was about. That we have had an overemphasis on the masculine in the world. In every part of society, business, government, religion, everywhere. And that women and the feminine have been sidelined. And we all come from a mother and a father, and we are equal parts, both of those energies. And our journey in this life is to become whole, to not be limited or constrained by the gender that we were born in, but to actually be able to have both of those. Martin Luther King said we must be tough-minded and tender-hearted. So we talk about not only the masculine and feminine, but also the elder and the child energy within us. We all have access to a higher self, our divine self, where wisdom resides, meaning and purpose and transcendence in this. And we have access to our inner child. Most of us have a wounded inner child, but we have to work to heal our inner child. Once you do that, then you have access to joy and laughter and creativity and innovation. All that comes from healthy child energy. So to become whole really means integrating all four of these and becoming what my poet and Nilima, I love that phrase, becoming the wise fool of tough love, the wisdom of the elder, foolishness of a child, the toughness of the masculine, and the love of the feminine, all within each being. Doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, if you're young or old, you can be a wise fool of tough love. Cultivate that within yourself. And then step 7 is heal yourself, which is heal your body, heal your story, but most importantly, heal your wounds and traumas, your psychic wounds and traumas. And as I said earlier, we all carry them, we all have them. Being born human, being born anything perhaps, but certainly being born human comes with trauma. Even the birthing process is traumatic. And then all of us go through various very challenging experiences. And minimizing them doesn't help anyone. If you say, I didn't go to Afghanistan and I didn't go to Iraq, so why should I complain about my challenges? Well, just because somebody else has bigger challenges doesn't make yours irrelevant. And we can have trauma from multiple sources. There's personal trauma, things that happen to us, bad things that should not have happened, or good things that should have happened but didn't happen. Children that are orphaned and they never get help. That's traumatic. That'll leave an imprint on them for their life. But then there's family trauma, things that happen to your parents in their families of origin. That certainly affects you. There's ancestral trauma. We are learning through epigenetics that things that happened multi-generations ago are still impacting us through certain gene expressions. So you may have an irrational fear, like I'm kind of claustrophobic. Now, where did that come from? Maybe there was somebody in my lineage who was buried alive, perhaps. Or some people are afraid of dogs without ever having a bad experience with dogs. Maybe there's something there. So that's epigenetics. And then there's collective trauma, things that we all share, like the pandemic was traumatic, right, worldwide for many, many people. So there's many, many sources of trauma, and what we have to do is to not do what most people do, which is dealing with it destructively, which is that you numb it, you hide it, and then you first of all you conceal it or hide it, and then you numb it with your coping mechanisms. Could be alcohol, which is very common, or many kinds of drugs. But then you relive it. You wake up, you still have that trauma. You might have a few hours of relief through that escape mechanism, right? But the healthy way to deal with it, constructive way, is to reveal it and feel it and heal it. You get the short-term low of experiencing that trauma, feeling it again, but then you get the long-term high of healing from it and experiencing post-traumatic growth. So that not only are you healed, but you now become the source of healing for others. That's the journey for all of us, especially for leaders to take, because they impact so many other people with their beings, right? The macrocosm is a reflection of the microcosm of a leader. And so if they're not healed, if they're not coming from a place of love, if they are coming from all these traumas, then they're going to inflict those at scale in the world. And that's what we see with bad leaders, right? I mean, all of the tyrants and dictators and all the others, they're coming from that place of unhealed inner wounds that then show up as bullying and aggression and all of that. So I think there's a duty for all of us to work on our own healing, especially if we are in leadership, and we owe it all the people whose lives we touch. Work on.
And I love that you're giving individuals this toolkit that they can start with So you're talking about the microcosm. Let's talk a little bit about the macrocosm as a way to wrap up the conversation. I mean, what we're seeing in workplaces right now, it's a tough environment. You know, we're seeing mass layoffs happening left and right. Employee engagement is at an all-time low. You mentioned tyranny. There's a kind of a tyrannical style leadership that's kind of coming back in fashion, not just in around the world, but also in corporations. What do you having focused on the healing leader and the individual piece, but also looking at the healing organization, what do you think we need to do as a society to tune back into our humanity,
Mhm.
knowing that this also impacts business performance in a positive way? We all know that. You saw that with your research, with your book. How can we kind of just go back to our own humanity? We kind of got lost along the way.
We have. I think we've been caught up in this mania for the last several decades, that life is only about money and material accumulation of power and money. And many people have been caught up in that game. And it goes back to our education. We teach, for example, economics, which is the foundation of capitalism and in business. What do we teach? That we are Homo sapiens, but we teach in economics that we are Homo economicus. And what is Homo economicus? That we only care about material, short-term, individualistic, maximizing of whatever we can get out of every situation. Right? That we're basically always looking at everything through that lens. And that becomes self-fulfilling. When we teach people that, people start to behave according to that. Social science theories have that unique thing about them that they can become self-fulfilling. If you learn that and then you believe it, then you start behaving like that and it becomes a so a bad theory can cause a lot of dysfunctional behavior. Research shows that students who study economics actually become more selfish and more short-term and more individualistic. We're producing 30 to 50 million of them every year. And they're the ones going, that's business students and management students and so forth. So we're teaching a very narrow view of what it means to be a human being. We're not Homo economicus, we're Homo sapiens. What does that mean? Certainly, we are self-interested. We have to take care of ourselves. We have a duty to that, but that's not all. Like we're also self-aware. We're conscious. We are loving. The giving and receiving of love is fundamental to a human being. We are altruistic. We do things without expecting anything in return all the time. We're incredibly cooperative. We can cooperate at a scale no other species can, and we are increasingly purpose-driven. So we have to have a deeper and richer understanding of human beings in every sphere of life, especially in business. We act like money is the only game in town. There are many games in town, many things that make life worth living. And businesses affect us or impact us in many of those dimensions, not just in the financial dimension. In a way, we need a Copernican revolution. Just like before Copernicus, we believed that we were the center of the universe, right? The Earth was the center of the universe, and the moon revolved around us, and the sun revolved around us, and everything. And then Copernicus came along and said, no, that's not how it is. So likewise, we have put money and profit at the center of our universe when it comes to business. And people and the planet and communities and everything revolves around that. We have to change that. We have to put life at the center. Not just humans, but all life, because life is interconnected and we are systematically destroying life on this planet. We're living through the sixth mass extinction in the history of the planet. This one caused by human activity. There were no humans the last time around. The species are disappearing at 100 to 1,000 times the rate than where you were. And so we have to look at life as a whole. We are the stewards of all life on this planet. Every business that we run has to be in service of life collectively, not just the financial dimension, but all of the things that make life worthwhile. It calls for a fundamental rethinking of what is business. Business is a way for us to take care of each other. It's not a way for me to exploit you to make money for myself. It's a way for me to meet your needs, for all of us together to meet each other's needs and do that at scale in a way that is efficient and productive and generates a surplus as well, so we can keep growing that, right? So I think of business as a way to express yourself and serve others. And if you do that well, all the money and everything flows from there. But if you think of business as a way to serve yourself and use others, then that same business becomes a source of hurting, of suffering. So the line between healing and suffering organizations is basically why you're doing this, with what energy are you doing this. And it can make a dramatic difference in the world when we all start to think of it that way. So I think there's a lot we need to do. We need to change education, we change mindsets, change the way people have been educated about what business is about. As we say, business can be beautiful and noble and heroic because no other part of society has the impact in the world that business has had, capitalism has had, and can have. But if we do it with low consciousness, we will cause enormous suffering, and we will destroy our ability to continue on this planet. We are depleting its resources at a rapid pace. But if we do it with higher consciousness, then there's no limit to how much more value we can create for each other and with each other.
Well, I hope this message is a wake-up call for all businesses and leaders out there. I encourage everyone to have a listen to Raj's TED Talks. Your talk on conscious capitalism, it's been around for over 8 years probably at this point, but it's still highly relevant. I really appreciate your time today, Raj. This was such a wonderful conversation. I feel like I tuned into my own inner self today, so thank you for that. You've published a lot of books. I have Awaken here, The Healing Organization, Everybody Matters.
No,
The book that you co-authored with Bob Chapman, and then the book that you're releasing, The Healing Leader, is that what it will be called?
it's called Healing Leaders. Healing Leaders.
Excellent. Well, I encourage everyone to pick up a coffee, and I wish you all the best, Raj. Thank you so much for being with me today.
You're welcome, Rebecca. I really enjoyed our time together. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you would like to learn more about the Empathy Collective, check out our website, theempathycollective.com. Life is too short. Let's take care of each other at work so that together we can make this world a better place.